In a world where cyber threats strike every second, your business needs more than protection. It needs real-time defense. Welcome to the Crowe CyberSecurity Operations Center, where vigilance meets technology. Here, our expert analysts monitor your networks 24/7, detecting attacks the moment they appear. They investigate, contain, and neutralize threats, keeping your business secure and running without disruption. We detect, we defend, we recover. Crowe UAE. Build a safer digital future today.
Hi everyone, very good morning. Thank you all for joining today's webinar on the ADGM FSRA Cyber Risk Management Framework. So today we are going to discuss about the key domains and the core concepts of the ADGM FSRA cyber risk framework. So why is it important for the entities that are regulated in ADGM? What exactly is the regulator requirement, and why is this CRMF really important from a cyber standpoint? So we are going to discuss about all these core concepts, and in case if you have any questions, any queries, I think I'll take up those questions at the end of the session. If time does not permit to take up any questions or answers, we can always respond back to your queries once you put it on chat, either through email or through phone conversations. We can get back to you. Thank you so much. So we'll jump to the presentation now, and looking forward for your active involvement. Want to set expectations, or set a mark to the world that they actually are the leading financial hubs in the globe. So for that reason, I think ADGM, DIFC, so there are a lot of in Dubai, if you see, we have a DIFC. In Abu Dhabi, you see, you have an ADGM. So similar, I think we actually have these regulations that actually are making the financial sectors more secure by bringing all these kind of frameworks that we are talking about. So as such, ADGM is a global market for Abu Dhabi. Okay, and under ADGM, actually FSA is the regulator that actually takes care of all. So now when I actually talk about the CRM framework, it is built by this FSRA regulator. So FSRA actually oversees all the financial service within the ADGM. And why it takes care? Because actually it looks into to ensure that the compliance, it protects investors and maintain that market integrity of the Abu Dhabi. Okay, and then comes the cyber risk management framework. It guides organizations to strengthen governance, risk management, technical controls against cyber threats. So what kind of technical controls should be implemented? How exactly these technical controls needs to be monitored? What exactly should be a governance structure? What exactly should be a strategy for access management? What should be a strategy for change? I think it actually gives all these kind of requirements for organizations to ensure that the cyber hygiene is improved. Right, because the end goal of any regulator, if you see, be it FSRA, be it DFC, be it the CBUAE regulator. So the end goal of all these regulators actually is to make sure that the cyber hygiene of any organization is improved, or it actually it becomes better. For example, today if we are at maybe at point A, so obviously we have to plan to move to point B or point C or point D. Right, so that is how exactly we have to improve our cyber hygiene, and all the regulator expectation actually is to improve that cyber hygiene. So FSRA cyber risk management framework also is not different. It is same, right? It actually wants to strengthen the governance, risk management, and then the technical controls against the cyber threats. And then ensuring resilience. Obviously, doing all this, right, we are going to ensure the resilience, that how strong we can withstand any kind of cyber attacks or any kind of cyber related incident that might happen. God forbid we don't have to really get into any cyber attacks, but yes, I think these are very evident, right? So we cannot really avoid from these cyber incidents. So these are all evident. So for that reason, we actually have to follow these kind of frameworks to ensure that we actually are resilient to these kind of cyber attacks. So just a key timelines. I just wanted to show how exactly FSRA got established, when it was established. You can see from 2013, I think ADGM got established, but again after 2013, the ADGM got established. So they actually have had this FSRA got established in 2015, so which was actually taking care of all the regulatory oversights and risk governance. So specifically, FSRA is is a foundation for the regulatory oversight and risk governance. They mostly look into the risk aspect of all the entities that are established or set up in the ADGM. Then the cybercrime focus actually came in 2021. Then again in 2023, 2024, I think more IT risk discussions, IT risk guidance have come up. In 2025 May, I think General Rule Book 3, okay, which is like the consultation paper number 3. So the CRM framework was has come into picture. And then in 2025 June, they have finally the final framework got issued, and they provided 6 months of grace period for all the entities. Like in June, the framework got released, and they gave 6 months of grace period for all the entities in Abu Dhabi or in the ADGM to get complied for this particular CRM framework. And by January 31st, all the entities in the ADGM are supposed to be compliant. So we are already in April month now. So by this time, all the entities that are there in the ADGM are supposed to be compliant to this particular ADGM FSRA regulation, this CRMF regulation. In case we are not complying to it, so the ADGM FSRA can do the audit, can actually come and conduct an audit on individual organizations and then see whether we are compliant or not. If we are not compliant, then I think obviously there are some consequences. I don't want to, because I think the consequences are different in nature. They're not like one, right? There can be regulatory fines. There can be just a improvement that the regulator can suggest. So there can be cancellation of the license. So there are like different in nature, right? The action, or the consequences from the ADGM FSRA can be different. So I cannot put it in a list that okay, these are the only consequences that you can see. So there are different in nature. So that's the reason it is very important for all the entities in the FSRA, in the ADGM, to get compliant to this CRM framework. So that is the reason I have this webinar. So I'll just show you what exactly this framework covers, what are the different areas in this framework. I'm very sure most of the organizations should have it, but I feel they will have it in bits and pieces. Okay, maybe I think they have an access management, but they don't have something, right? So they'll have bits and pieces. So you will actually get by end of this webinar a complete picture of what exactly is this FSRA CRMF regulation, so that you can go back, you can sit with your IT teams, you can sit with your IT security managers, you can sit with your chief information security officers, you can actually explain them. I think Manish, I think are we going to publish this presentation? Are we going to share this presentation to all the people? Manish, you're there?
Yes, we will do that.
Yes, we will upload in YouTube and then share.
Great. So I think you will actually get this presentation also, because this presentation can help you, how exactly to achieve this CRM framework. So I move to next slide. Okay, why CRM matters now for the ADGM financial sector? So the foremost important reason is the rising threat exposure, because there are a lot of cyber attacks, cyber threats, and given the scenario currently that we all are in, you can see there is huge increase in the cyber attacks. There are a lot of APT groups. There are a lot of attacker groups that are very active in the region. They are doing a lot of attacks. There are a lot of attacks happening. So obviously one of the main reason to have this CRMF is for the because of the rising threat that got rising threat exposure actually. Okay, and then regulatory mandate, not optional. So before July 2025, it was not mandatory, but from January 31st, 2026, this particular regulation is mandatory for all the organizations or all the entities that are in ADGM. Then obviously the one more important reason, financial, because ADGM is a financial hub. So there are a lot of financial entities working there, and financial entities or financial sector actually is a high stake, right? Because as a cybersecurity expert, so I can tell you that I think the very niche areas or sectors where the cyber attackers are very keen to attack are actually the medical healthcare sector and the financial healthcare sector, and then the government sector. So these three are the very prominent areas, or I would say, right, go to sectors, I would say, where the attacks happen. So I think financial sector being one. So a single breach in financial institution can compromise customer funds, transaction data. So there can be millions of transactions, right, routed to the attackers' accounts and all. Recently, there was an attack, not in ADGM, but I think in DFC, I would say. I cannot name, obviously, for the right confidentiality purpose, but I think the attack was so, I think they have actually lost maybe in fraction of minutes or something, they have lost some billions, actually billions of US dollars. So I'm not talking about even lakh millions or not, actually billions of dollars here. So I think so the scale is huge of the attacks in the financial sector. So that is the reason why CRMF is really important for the financial sector. And then board and senior management liability, because when you actually have accountability, then people take things serious, right? Because when you don't have accountability, then people take things for granted, is what, right, we all have been experiencing, or we all know this, right? So right, board and senior management liability is, right, very much focused actually in CRM, because if you see the general rule book 3 of this CRMF, so first initial 2-3 right section, I would say, is actually talking about the accountability and the government governance leadership. How is you going to governance leadership involved into this framework? How are you going to integrate this cyber risk management framework into your overall business risk management framework? So it's all about the board and the senior management liability. And then the investor and customer confidence, obviously, right? Because when we are dealing with our customers, business, we obviously want to win their trust, right? Without trust, we cannot grow business. So I think it actually helps in investors and customers' confidence when we actually follow these kind of frameworks. And then cyber attack trends in financial sector. As I said, right, this CRMF is really very important, but why is it important for, right, to understand that? You need to understand the trends that happens, right? The cyber attack trends that happens in the financial sector. Specific to GCC or UAE also. So you can see there are like 65% of like surge in ransomware attacks targeting the financial sector in 2024. I'm not talking about 2026, we have just started, but from 2024, if you actually take the average, I think there is 65% of a spike in the ransomware attacks. And ransomware attacks obviously are one of the, I would say, very deadliest attacks, because it actually disrupts the whole business. It disrupts the whole, right? I think you'll not be able to work, you'll not be able to, right? It completely stops the business. So I think, right, one of the deadliest ransomware attack, and you can see it's 65% surge, and then 433% increase in financial sector cyber incidents, which is, if you see the number 150 was in 2020, 800, right, it got increased in 2024. You can see how much 400+% got increased. So you can understand the scale of cyber attacks are getting. So these numbers can be debated, right? But again, these are some from source that we have actually got it. So we just wanted to give you that context, that why the CRMF is important, because of all these attacks, because of all this increase in the percentage of attacks happening. So just wanted to give you that context. And then 21% of all UAE cyber incidents target banks and financial services, second to the government. Right, I think after the government, actually banks are the main targets for the cyber attackers, and you can see 21% of all the UAE cyber incidents, I'm saying, right? So out of 100, 21% of cyber incidents actually are for the banks. So you can see, and it is also second highest, right, attack vector, or the attack target for the attackers, or target for the attackers. And then recent cyber threat targeting the UAE finance sector. So you can see, right, the first Abu Dhabi Bank, RAC Bank, right? This bank obviously had some disruptions in online banking, and obviously the attacker group was Anonymous Sudan. So they actually launched a DDoS attack, because of which there were some, right, disruptions, right? And these actually are one of the biggest banks in the region, and they also had, right, some disruptions. Obviously, right, they had the security controls, they were able to overcome and all. But just wanted to let you know, I think the banks of these, right, size also are target, or, right, getting this kind of business disruptions because of the attacks. Then I think we can have to think about, right, the entities or the banks which are of small size, so, right, small and medium size. I think we have to be very careful about these kind of attacks, and we should be very proactive in thinking how to safeguard, or how to make our organizations resilient to this particular cyber attacks. Ransomware surge, as I just said, Okay, I think group targeting UAE from 12 to 19 groups actually. So as you know, I think ransomware is now being delivered as a ransomware as a service. So we know, I think software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, but ransomware is now being sold in darknet, dark web, right, by different groups, right? Here I've listed down some groups like Logbit, Everest, So these are some right famous ransomware groups. So they're actually selling it as a ransomware as a service. So you really don't have to spend right ages to build the ransomware code or the script to attack. So you just have to pay them maybe $10, $20, $50, and then you will get the complete rate package of this ransomware, and then you just have to take it and then inject or maybe send it to the customers, or infect into the customers, and then the organization's infrastructure is gone. So it is so easy now, right? It is so easy now to conduct these kind of ransomware attacks in organization. And the group actually got increased from 12 groups earlier to 19 groups. So that means the ransomware groups are also just increasing because they see a lot of benefit, they see a lot of profit here because they're selling it to people. So obviously they are also increasing in count. AI enhanced phishing and the business email compromises because with AI, the phishing emails have become so undetected, I would say, because I think the AI actually has made those emails look so genuine. Even expert like cybersecurity, right? We also sometimes fail to identify or detect. I know it is not a good statement for me to tell now here, but yeah, that is a fact. Okay, I think right when we actually come across a mail, even we have to spend time, right, to understand is it really a phishing email or not, because I think the emails are so properly drafted, right, using the AI and right with AI enhancement. I can understand, right? I think people who are actually technology savvy, so for them actually it is taking time to detect the phishing email. I can understand the people who are non-technical people. So for them, how difficult, how challenging it is. So that is the reason we actually are talking about the controls, security controls. So you should have an email gateway solution. You should have phishing simulation exercise conducting. I think these all are because of that human weak link which is there in an organization to address those weak links. And then you can see there are 223,000 plus vulnerable assets actually in UAE. So it can be the servers, it can be applications, it can be anything. So there are 223 plus vulnerable assets. So obviously, when you have a vulnerability assets or when a vulnerable assets, the attack I would say attack surface also increases with the vulnerabilities. So I think we as an organization, as a IT security lead or as a security manager or a CISO, we should ensure that our organization is having very minimum number of vulnerabilities. I know, right? I think if I say I think zero vulnerabilities, it would be a statement that not a correct statement to give, because vulnerabilities exist, right? So that is not something, right, we can completely avoid because there. But the point is, are those vulnerabilities exploitable? Are those vulnerabilities internet faced? Using these vulnerabilities, can an attacker? I think those kind of things, right? As a CISO, as a cybersecurity managers, we need to check. And then what is the main purpose of this cyber risk management?
Online conference.
Yeah.
Agreement.
Just a minute. I think Girish, I'm just muting you. Thanks. Sorry. Okay. So the main purpose of cyber risk management framework. So the objective, right, is integrity, availability, and confidentiality. Right. So this is the CAA trade we say. I think people from cybersecurity, right, they might know what exactly is the CAA trade. So, but the end goal of any organization is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So these three things they have to, because confidentiality, your data should be confidential always. Integrity, your data cannot be tampered. Availability, your data should be always available to the customers. So these three is a fundamental CAA triad. So the framework also focuses on this CAA triad. And then governance and integrations. Okay, as I said, so governance layer has been very much focused in this particular CRM framework. So for example, if you are a CISO, if you are a CEO people, or if you are a manager, so accountability of your role actually is more important in this framework. So you actually will be really very important, because implementations, everything actually has to be taken care by the leadership. And then we have regulatory importance, like it obviously it reduces the cyber incident risk to prevent financial losses and all. And then proactive measures, it actually helps to go from reactive to proactive. So you don't actually have to wait for some incidents to happen or occur in your organization or in your entity. So you actually become proactive. Okay, you actually are setting up your incident management policies, you are setting up your account management policies, you are setting up your detection controls, prevention controls. So you're actually setting up, right? You're making all this, right, using the CRM framework to actually become proactive, not reactive. So that is one of the main purpose of this framework. And then yeah. So some key changes, right, in cyber risk management, and everybody should know about these key changes because CRM framework was not, if you see the legal status before July 2025, so mostly it was like just guidance or compliance was like voluntary. Like in case you want to compliant, you get compliant. If you don't want to, you don't, right? I think there was no stringent, mandatory checks by the ADGM regulator. But now from effective 31st January 2026, which is we are already, right, because in April month we are now. So now it is legally required and all firms must comply. So if you're not complying, then there are consequences, as I said right previously. Then incident notification. There was no quickly reporting of incidents to the FSRA. No strict timeline. So for example, if I have been breached, okay, so I can actually notify to the regulations after maybe 3 days, 4 days, 6 days, right? I can actually report. There was no strict timelines or a stipulated timeline. But now if you see, any cyber incident that your company come across, when I say cyber incident, the major incident I'm talking about, not all the minor or P3, P2, P1 incidents, or maybe I think major incidents, like because of which the business got disrupted, or it actually had an impact with the most of the users, or maybe not most of the users, maybe I think high number of users got impacted. So I think if these kind of major incidents happens, you actually are supposed to report to FSRA within 24 hours. So this is a very important change actually, because for any incident that happens and you have to report within 24 hours, then you actually have to have a monitoring team also. Because if you don't have a monitoring team, okay, the first thing is you'll not be able to detect that there wasn't any cyber attack. When you're not able to detect something, then how will you report it to the FSRA? So for that point, you actually need to have a cybersecurity team. You need to have a monitoring team available who actually does monitoring of 24/7. If not 24/7, at least right. This is not a good practice, but right, I know, right, there are some customers who are very small, medium. So for them, right, having 24/7 monitoring teams available will be an overkill. So at least for them, you can have a monitoring from Monday to Friday, 24/7. Saturday, Sunday, you can actually have an on-call support or maybe something like that. You can, right, you can actually arrange, right, a stopgap arrangement kind of things you can do. But the end goal is you need to report any cybersecurity incidents to the FSRA within 24 hours now, right? If you're not reporting within 24 hours, then there are some consequences. And third party and IT risk, because in the generation or in the era that we are here, so we actually rely more on the supply chain management. Okay, so we actually, right, have a lot of, for example, if I am running an organization, so obviously I have 10, 15, 20 different supply chain vendors who actually are providing me either the services, either the goods and whatever, right? So we actually, so for them, that is the reason this third party IT risk actually has become very, very prominent. So you need to understand what are the clear rules for managing risk from IT suppliers and subcontractors. So you need to first understand what are the risks from these suppliers and the subcontractors. And then according to that, you need to include your SLAs, right? So you need to sign, right, get into this contract SLAs. How quickly, for example, if the supplier is not able to provide you the service, so what exactly is your agreement between those suppliers? So do you have those kind of supply contracts, third party contracts or not? If you don't, I think you should go back and then check the contracts with your third parties. It can be Azure, it can be AWS, because all these actually are the supply chain vendors for us, right? So we're actually taking some or the other service from these vendors. It can be a cloud vendor, it can be a data center vendor, it can be a private cloud vendor, it can be anybody, right? It can be an application team, or it can be application, right? Maybe a CRM application, a Salesforce application, it can be anything, right? So whatever you are taking from outside, not developing in-house, I think you need to have contracts with them. So if you don't have, I think you need to go back and check the contract there. Then governance, right? Very important. So board accountability was very general previously. So there was no very specific accountability. Like if something happens in an organization, so the board actually was not responsible, or board was not made accountable, or the regulator was not in a situation to catch hold of the board actually when there is cyber attack. But now, as part of this new rule, I think governance, so board must approve the framework, set the risk limit, and review it. So I think board actually is made accountable now. That is the reason. So we very clearly it is highlighted that the board has to approve the framework. Okay, because if the IT security manager has created something, it's not that the cyber security manager will go and deploy it. So he actually has to go to approval right from the board. It can be CEO level, it can be CISO level, it can be CXO level. It depends from organization to organization. But the board approval should be there, and according to that, they have to set the risk limits, and then these particular frameworks has to be regularly reviewed also. It can be quarterly, half yearly, yearly, but I think regular review also has to be conducted. Then transition period. Obviously, 6 months of grace period was provided by the FSRA because it was released in June last year, and they gave 6 months to comply. So from January 31st, all the entities has to comply. So these are the key changes I want to highlight. Yeah. So now I think this slide is really very important for everyone. Okay, because till now I just gave just to set the context, to be very honest, right? I didn't get into the framework, but this actually is the framework. So this framework has different categories. Okay, it has governance, asset management, supply chain, incident response, detection capabilities, access management, data security. So these are some different categories, and all these categories you need to. And one important thing, right, I want to tell. A good thing about the ADGM FSRA is they are actually not asking the entities to go with any specific framework. So they are okay to go with the UAE standard. They are okay to go with the NIST standards. They are okay to, I think, whatever international standards they are, right. For example, if your organization follows NIST framework, you don't have to worry. You can continue with NIST framework, because NIST framework also has all these categories, right? It has governance, it has risk, it has asset management, access management, it has everything. So good thing about the FSRA is they actually have not asked any entities to go for any specific regulation. They're okay if you are complying to the UAE regulation, which is from central bank, CBUAE. If you are complying any international standard, like any ISO standards, if you are following any NIST standards, if you are following the CIS benchmark standards, if you are following the any international standard that is very reputed and renowned, I think if you are complying to those frameworks, you are good enough. You don't have to worry about. But again, those frameworks will definitely cover these categories, but you have to go back and once check whether all these categories are there. So I just gave some sample controls and sample evidence also. For example, in governance, the sample evidence that you should have is the board meetings, right? Board meeting, because obviously when you have this board approvals and all, you'll have some meetings. So as evidence, you need to always keep this board minutes available. This CRMF document, the main risk management framework document, and the organization chart, like who reports to whom, the CISO reports to whom, the security manager. I think you need to have that organization chart. Then the asset management. This, unfortunately, I wanted to say that I think we are not maintaining it. So I would not say all the organizations or not every organization, but yes, I think most of the organizations that I am interacting, or most of the customers I am interacting with, I think the asset management is one very weak area that I've seen, right? People are not managing the assets really very well. Either people are just doing it in Excel basis, they just put it in Excel. So they don't have any tool based, asset management, or some customers are not even maintaining the Excel sheets, right? So I think very unfortunate part, but yeah, I think this comes with awareness, with education. Why is it important and all? So obviously, we are here in the market to bring that awareness to our customers. So asset management, I think critical asset inventory and classifications. So asset discovery tools you can have, classification policies you can have. Because why asset management is really very important. People don't understand the main reason behind asset management is it's not to keep a track of how many assets are there in my environment. No, it is actually to ensure that what are the critical assets actually for the organization. For example, if I have 100 assets which I am actually tracking, so out of those 100 assets, maybe not all 100 assets are important and critical for the organizations to run. So there might be some 10 assets which are really very critical, right? 10 servers which are there, which are very critical. So with those 10 servers, in case if those are not working or if those got disrupted, so business get impacts or business might impact. So for that reason, you need to maintain this asset inventory. So you know, right, what is important for your organization, because anything and everything is not important, right? So out of the 100, I cannot really focus on all the 100. right? So I have to focus on 10 different assets, which are really very important for my organization. By that, I'm not saying that the other 90 devices or 90 assets are not important, but my priority or my focus should be on these 10 assets. So that is the reason why we have to have that asset management. And then supply chain management, I've already discussed, right? So we have a lot of supply chain vendors here in UAE. So we should actually have all kind of contracts with our supply chain vendors. Like you need to have the BCP plans with them. You need to have the DR plans with them. You need to know, for example, if your service is not available to us, right? What is the SLA? Like how quickly you, right, enable that particular service to us? Like for P1 incidents, what is the SLA? For P2 incidents, what is? I think all these things should be properly, right, mentioned in your contract, in your supply chain documents. So if you see sample evidence, you can due diligence form, contracts, audit reports are very important. Then incident response, because as you are supposed to report incidents within 24 hours. So now, right, you have to have an incident response plan. There is no other option. So you as an organization, you should have an incident response plan, and your incident response actually should be tested also. It is not you just have a policy or incident response plan created, but it should be tested. How can you test it? Using some tabletop exercises. Right? So you can conduct some regular tabletop exercises. So where you involve most of your response teams, okay, and then you test your incident response process, like how quickly you are able to right, recover from any incident. So those kind of response plans should be there. As evidence, you need to have that IRP document, incident response plan document, incident log, simulation record. So when I say simulation records, tabletop exercise records, and like, these kind of records, or maybe you do some red team activities, right, as part of simulation. So those kind of records should be available, right, made available, right, as evidence to the regulator when they are coming for any audit. Then detection, vulnerability management, penetration testing, right? I think I think SIM was also there. Maybe I think in this right other slides I have about it. But the point is, I think you need to have the detection capabilities, okay, where you can actually detect. Because if you're not able to detect it, how will you report anything to anyone, right? So the detection capabilities are very important. Then again, access management, MFA. If you actually ask me what are the low-hanging fruits from this that you should actually, right, focus, or what should be the priority for you, I would say access management should be the first priority, because MFA enabling is not a major task, right? But I think I don't know why many organizations, right, don't enable MFA for their users. So I think you should actually start with access management, then data security. So how encryptions and everything is coming into picture. So AES 256 encryption, TLS 1.2 for any transition of data. The data should be transcripted, right, encrypted into using TLS encryption. So these all should be right available. And then we have monitoring. Okay, yeah, I think SIEM right, SIEM is right as part of the monitoring solution I've kept, but it can be a detection solution also, SIEM. So you need to have this monitoring capabilities available. Either you outsource it, either you have in-house team available to do the monitoring, but you should have a monitoring in place. And SIEM actually is one of the best tool to have monitoring, because it actually collects logs, it collects alerts from everything. So it collects from the Windows, from the firewall, from the network, from the router, from the switches, from the application, from the databases. So it actually centralized log monitoring solution. So it actually brings everything into one SIEM, which is like security information and event management. So it actually brings into one technology, and a team who is actually sitting, right, a SOC team or any team sitting, they can actually monitor everything from a single pane of glass. So I think that becomes very important to have an SIEM. And then change management. So any change that you are doing, right, in your organization should actually go with this change management approval. And why is it important? Because when there are 2-3 people involved, right, it is right, it makes that risk risk can be reduced, right, if there are 2-3 people involved, right? Because when I am actually, right, bringing with some change suggestion or a change implementation, so I actually go to my manager looks into it, he actually check the impact, whether there is real impact of the change or not. Then again, this actually goes to board approval, then board actually look at. I'm saying I think it actually will help in reducing the risk, change management. Then BCP and DR, definitely current situation that we all are into. I think right, most of the people might understand why the BCP is really very important, because I think AWS was not available for most of the banks. AWS, right, so many private clouds were not available for the banks and customers. So having BCP is really very important. And then physical access, right, like CCTV, badges, door access, these things should definitely be there. The awareness, And then you need to ensure that you have a lot of trainings in your organizations, right, for your staff. Basic cybersecurity training, it should not be technical, or it will not be technical, obviously, but very high level, right? Basic trainings, like, okay, how they should be able to detect a phishing email, how they should be able to report. For example, the main problem that I've seen with organization is, for example, if I as a user, I'm able to identify something suspicious, but I actually don't know how to report it, or to whom should I report it, right? Because they don't know. Because the culture of an organization was not right. I think that culture was not built, that if you find something suspicious, you have to report to so and so person. So when that culture was not available, or that culture was not built, for example, if I as a user identify something, I'm seeing that something wrong is happening in my laptop, or something wrong, I've received some, right, from some attacker, or some email I've received. So I can see that there is something wrong, right, in my laptop or in my email. But now there should also be a way for that particular user to report it to the respective people. So if I'm not able to report it, right, I think it is gone like undetected kind of thing. So I think you need to have that awareness, where you can actually, right, create awareness among team to tell them, okay, I think how you should report any cyber security incidents and all. And then risk assessments, then protective. So see, I actually have put detective and protective, right? So two controls, because I think detection and protection are two different things. So I think you need to have, you need to sit and understand with your IT management, IT managers, cybersecurity manager, like which controls are detective controls and which controls are preventive controls in your organization. For example, if you have only an antivirus solution, okay, so it can be preventive, right? It can be protective control, right? Because antivirus is going to detect and also block. For example, if you want to have a response control also, then I think antivirus will not become your response thing. So you need to have an XDR solution for that. XDR solution will actually give you the capabilities of response also. So you need to sit and understand from your cybersecurity team what exact kind of controls we have in our organization. Then again, threat intelligence we should have to understand what's happening globally and how that can impact our organization. Okay, and regulatory obligations and evidence of compliance. So mandatory requirement for ADGM, obviously, as I said, and all regulated entities must adhere to ADGM FSRA framework. Evidence and audit readiness you should have. As right in the previous slide, I gave you one slide where what kind of evidence you should have for each of those categories. So I think you need to have that evidence, because it will make you actually audit ready. Right? When you have all those evidences in place, so when an auditor comes, obviously he's going to ask you evidence. He's not going to ask you whether you are following this kind of, but he'll obviously, right, the gap analysis or the assessment by the auditor will be conducted based on the audits, based on the evidences that you have. So I think the previous slides which I just show you, it actually has one column which talks about the evidences. So if you can actually go back and then collect, right, or keep all these evidences available of each of these categories, I think we are almost done. You actually, I would say, I think you are actually 90 to 95% adhering to this framework, in case if you are actually collecting all this evidences and keep, because evidences can only be collected when you actually have that policy implemented, right? So if you are able to collect the evidences of each of these categories, then you can actually consider yourself like 90 to 95% compliant. I am saying 5% not compliant because, right, I think the auditor has to come in and really see whether the evidences are correct or not. So, but again, 90 to 94% you will be compliant in case you are collecting all the evidences, which I just spoke about in the previous two slides. And then the incident reportings, right, very important. And then governance and risk mitigation. I think I've covered this. So I'll just move to next slide. These are some core domains I wanted to cover, right, in the overall categories that I think there I've spoke about 15, 16 different controls, right, like governance, access management, asset management, supply chain management, change management, right, almost like 15, 16 controls in total I spoke about. But these 6 should be your priority, right, to start with. For example, now you as a cybersecurity manager or as an IT manager, right, if you want to ask me like, Shanaz, where do I start? Right? How do I start? Right? If that is a question, then this is the answer for that, right? So these are the core domains of the ADGM framework. So here you should, right, this is where you should start with, because if I tell you, right, to like just give a CRM framework and tell, okay, you have to implement all the 16 controls, all the 16 categories, right, it becomes difficult for you, right, because you will be lost, right? You will be like, okay, where exactly should I start with? So this actually slide helps you where to start or how to start with. So I think you should first start with the governance and leadership accountability. First, you need to have the RACI matrix, okay, the responsible, accountable, consult, and information, right? That is the abbreviation of RACI. So you need to have that RACI structure. Like in your organization, who exactly is responsible? For example, if there is any control that is not available or the control is missing, who is responsible? Is an IT security manager responsible? Is a cyber security team responsible? Is the CISO responsible? Is the CEO responsible? You need to have that RASI matrix, right, created so that it actually ensure that there is accountability, right? Who was responsible for it? Who was accountable for that? Who was in consulting mode or who was into like this information guy. So I think you need to have that governance and leadership accountability. Then I would say cyber risk management and assessment. So you need to continuously identify risk, right? Because risk are nothing but, for example, you don't have a governance and leadership accountability. That actually is a risk now. Correct. You don't have incident response plan. That also becomes a risk. You don't have an access management policy. That also becomes. So I think these cyber risk management is an overarching, right, arcing umbrella, I would say, right? So cyber risk is on the top. Under that, all actually are the branches, right? The account management, the access management, the change management, right? All these actually are the branches of the cyber risk management, overall cyber risk management. So that is the reason you need to first sit and do an assessment whether I have a cyber risk management policy or not. If you don't have it, then you need first to build a cyber risk management policy, because that actually will give you a baseline. Okay, in cyber risk management policy, what are all the things that I should cover? So if you have that, it becomes your job, right? It makes your job more easy. Then asset management and data protection. So actually I've put asset and data in one, right? You can actually segregate it, because in my previous slides when I spoke, actually asset was separate and data protection was separate. But here I've just mixed, right? Or maybe I think I've just added, right, these two together. And why I did it, because I think you can actually, right, for example, when you know when there is a critical asset, so immediately what you should do is what data resides on that asset. Right. So you actually have to do that in conjunction. You cannot, right, isolate these two and then, right, work on a solution. So you need to first understand what is the critical asset. Like for example, if there is an application, right, a banking application, which is really very critical for your organization. So now that banking application actually will become a very critical asset for you, right? So now in that application, how the data is managed, right? Whether data is encrypted, whether the data is being, right, backup is being taken of that particular application, right? What database? I think all this actually can be in conjunction. It cannot be like isolated or separated, or you cannot look into this in silo. So asset management and data protection, right, is and one more area, which is like core domain, I would say. And then access management, MFA, and then incident detection and response, detective and protective controls, business continuity and recovery planning, and then supply chain security. So these 8 domains, I believe if you start with, right, in your organization, I'm pretty much sure you will be 70-80% rate compliance, because there are other framework, there are other categories also. That's why I'm actually telling 70-80. But at least if you actually, right, comply to these 8 controls or 8 core domains, most of your job, right, you will, right, we all can have a peaceful life, right? I can go back to home, I can sleep peacefully. But if you don't have this, and then if I feel that, okay, I can go and have a peaceful sleep, for example, not for everybody, right? I think, for example, if I am in a role where I'm maybe a CISO of an organization, a Chief Information Security Officer, or if I'm and accountable for the cyber security of that organization, then I cannot go and have a peaceful sleep without having all these core domains in my organization, right? So I think we should actually start with these 8 domains, I would suggest. Just give more details about this. It actually helps you. Okay. As I said, right, when I started the webinar, so the main purpose of this webinar is actually to create that awareness and then give you some guidance or, right, a roadway to how exactly you should approach this framework, right? So that you're not lost, right? Because as soon as I say CRM frameworks and all, people get like, okay, it's boring thing, yeah, what kind of framework and all. So I'm just giving you at very high level that, okay, you don't, right, get lost actually in this whole discussions of this right, regulatory frameworks and all. So start with this basic stuff, right? I think the previous slide, okay, start with these 8 domains and what exactly you have to do in each of these domains I've just listed down. Okay, so for example, in governance and leadership accountability, so you need to have board approved CRMF, you need to have RASI and organizational structures, you need to have cyber risk appetite. Okay, like organization must define the cyber risk, okay, and integrate into enterprise. Like you need to understand what exactly is your risk appetite. Okay, like when I say risk appetite, how much of risk you can actually withstand, right? So you need to know that. Okay, for example, there is a server or there is an application which is exposed to internet. Okay, then that means the risk appetite, it is already exposed to internet. So it will not have that much of appetite, right? Or it cannot withstand, right, most of the cyber attacks because it's exposed to internet. But if you actually, right, stop that exposure, right? Maybe I think you don't expose that server to internet, you block the port numbers, you actually place maybe a web application firewall or maybe a perimeter firewall right behind that application server. That means you are actually making your risk appetite more now, right? Because you can actually withstand more cyber attack now. So I think you need to sit and understand that risk appetite. And then annual policy review. Okay, I think this is really very important. You need to have right annual policy review definitely conducted. It might not take much time. I think maybe 1 or 2 days you sit with all your board members, with your key stakeholders, you'll be easily able to do this review. And then senior management accountability. So as I said, senior management accountability is really very important. So these are some 5 important things if you're actually covering in this governance and leadership accountability. So one domain you can easily say that, yes, I'm complying to this domain as part of the CRM framework. Then second one, cyber risk management and assessment. As I said, so risk assessment you have to conduct, risk registers you need to create, because this actually are the fundamentals, or these are the core areas for your cyber security, or all the different domains I'm talking about. This actually makes you a baseline. Like risk register, for example, you have a risk register. What exactly goes into risk register? For example, you don't have an MFA. Right? You don't have MFA enabled. So when you don't have an MFA enabled, actually it becomes a risk. That risk needs to be registered in the risk register. If you have that, so it actually gives you a consolidated view that what all risks are there in my organization. So that is the reason as I said, so this actually is an overarching thing, right? So it is an umbrella under which everything, right, gets covered. So if you are not maintaining this, it becomes very difficult, because I think you actually have to do reverse engineering then. Right, so you need to first go and check, and if you actually have this, it will become your life will become really very easy. So I would say I think you should actually maintain these kind of risk registers. So risk registers can be, right, you can maintain it in Excel sheets. You can, right, obviously I would suggest to go for so many tools and all. But again, right, if you don't have a tool, you don't have to really worry about it, right? You can actually maintain some Excel sheets and then track your risk. Then risk appetite, as I said, right, you need to understand what are the key risks, right, that you can actually, right, that organization faces, and whether how much they can withstand, right, those kind of things you need to understand. The third party risk. So these are some key areas for cyber risk management. If you actually, right, following this, I think you will be in a better position. And then asset management and data protection. So critical asset inventory. So I would say, if to start with, just have an Excel sheet. There's no harm, right? So just start with Excel sheet, just right, update your Excel sheets, ensure that the Excel sheet is not a legacy document, or not a document which has completely, right, not. So just keep it a live document, keep it in some SharePoint location. Your IT team should have access to it, and it actually has to be reviewed, like either every week by your manager, or every, right, 15 days once at least the manager has to review that Excel sheet, that okay, what new devices have been included, what devices have been removed from that list. So it actually has to be, right, the Excel sheet has to have all that information. So right, you need to maintain these kind of asset inventory list. Okay, and asset inventory list should not only have any laptop details, it should actually have your server information, your firewall information, your switches information, your router information, your applications that are being used, your database information, everything and anything with respect to IT. It can be a mouse, it can be right, it can be your LAN cable, it can be anything. There's no harm actually adding it in an Excel sheet, because it will give you visibility that tomorrow something, right, happen. It is very easy for you to go back and track, right, into that Excel sheet. So that is an asset inventory. And data classification is really very important. Okay, like what data is critical, what data is, when I say not critical, like top secret, confidential, or publicly available data that you can actually put. I think you need to have the classification that can be conducted only with the DPIA, right? Data protection impact assessment. You need to first conduct an impact assessment. You need to first know what data is really critical or important for your organization, and what data is not critical and important. So whichever is critical and important data, that can be categorized into secret or top secret or confidential. The data which is really not very important for your organization, like which is open, right, that can actually become, right, open or publicly available. So you need to have that DPA conducted to first understand what data is important and not important for your organization. Then encryption standards. So now once we are able to, right, categorize our data or classify our data, the second immediate step is to encrypt that data. Right? That is the reason I have just put it in a very, right, 3-phase, I would say. So first you categorize your asset. Second, you classify your data, then you enable encryption on that data. For example, if it is a confidential data, then what kind of encryption? For example, if it is data at rest, then it should be encrypted using AES algorithm, right? AES encryption. If the data is being routed like maybe from one location to other location, or you're sending data, then it is like data in transit, right? So data in transit can be using TLS encryptions and all. So these are some standards that you need to be aware of, and you need to start discussing this with your IT managers, SOC managers, cybersecurity managers to get these implemented if in case they are not available in your organization. Then access management, right? Controlling and monitoring access to critical systems like MFA on privileged accounts. Again, MFA on privileged accounts is something that I'm requesting everybody as at least you should do it, at least, right? This is something at least you should do it, but MFA should actually be enabled on all the accounts. It's not only on the privileged account, but to start with, right? For example, if organization says that I don't have an MFA, so I cannot tell him, okay, please go and enable MFA across your organization, right? For example, if the organization like 500 people organization, 1,000 people organization, I cannot go and tell, okay, enable MFA across. I should first tell them, okay, at least you enable the MFA on the privileged accounts, right? To start with. After that, slowly, I think down the line, maybe after, right, maybe 1 month, after 20 days, after 30 days, you can, right, extend that to all your users. But first, start with the privileged users. So that is the reason I just mentioned MFA on privileged accounts. And then quarterly access reviews. This is one very critical area, I would say. I think people overlook, okay, because for example, if it is a 1,000 people organization, so there are a lot of people joining the organization, there are a lot of people leaving the organization, correct? So every month there might be an attrition, right? People coming, people leaving, there are a lot of, right, people joining and leaving. So the point is, if you don't have that review, right, quarterly review, you will actually not know if there are any stale accounts, right? Maybe people, right, maybe a candidate has left the organization, but still his account is active. Or maybe still his account is disabled or deleted in the Active Directory, but his account is not deleted in so and so application. His account is not deleted in so and so, right? So you need to have that quarterly access review, right? Application account review also, and the Active Directory review also. I think 2 reviews you should have, right, at least quarterly. Every month, if you have it, that would be great. But I really don't want to sound like, okay, I think this guy is making our lives, right, more hell. But at least to start with, have quarterly reviews, I would suggest. And then role-based access controls, okay, and then audit trails, right? Comprehensive logging of all access-sensitive information, because now who is accessing what, right? How exactly is he accessing it? Is he accessing from home? Is he accessing from some other country? How will you know, right? So you will know all that using audit trails. So you need to ensure that whatever authentication or access thing is happening, that should be tracked, right, in a tool. Right, using some tool. It can be an IAM tool, it can be an SIM tool, it can be any tool, right, that you use, but that tool should have the capabilities of auditing, right? It should be able to collect that audit logs, so that in future, if you want to do some investigation, that okay, I think maybe right in March, right, from Shanawaz account, something has happened. So how will you able to identify that without audit trails? So you need to ensure that you need to have that audit trails. There are a lot of tools available which actually collect all these audit trails and give you a centralized visibility. And then incident detection and response. Okay, so as part of this, again, right, you need to have an incident response plan. You need to have incident detection. Incident detection, as I said, at SIM is there. So that actually is one of the best tool. Okay, I know SIM is little costly. Okay, but again, there are a lot of XDR solutions also available in the market now, which are actually selling like maybe I think $5 per right user. Like for example, if you have 500 machines, right, in your organization, so they're actually charging you maybe $3 also, $5 also, $6 also, 10, 20. There are a lot of options available. I'm saying just look into the other option, look into the options, whatever is your right organization size, your organization budget. Just you can actually hire some consultants. You can actually bring some cybersecurity consultants and then ask them to actually give you some recommendations and suggestions. It will not cost much, but I think you can actually have, because I think if you don't have a detection in place, it's very difficult, because if I don't have detection, what will I respond, right? Because I don't even know, for example, if I don't have lock to my door, right, and then I'm sitting inside and then I'm feeling safe and secure, it doesn't make sense, right? Because you need to have that lock to the door and then you sleep peacefully in home. That makes sense. So you need to have the detection capabilities. If you don't have it, right, it's a problem. Then 24 hours FSRA notifications. Okay. And for that, you need to again have a team who is detecting and monitoring it. Because if you don't have it, then how will you notify anything? Because you yourself will not know that there is something has happened. So you need to have the detection team available who actually is doing the detection for you, because once they detect it, you can be able to report it in 24 hours. And then the roles and responsibilities should be very clear. Okay, in this incident and response, like who is supposed to do the L1 monitoring, L2 monitoring, who is supposed to report to the FSRA regulator. So you need to have all that roles and responsibilities clearly categorized. And then investigation and RCA, right, root cause analysis. So obviously you have a detection team, only then they can actually do all this investigation and RCA. So that's the reason, right? I think detection capability is really very important. So if you don't have, I think you should actually start. I think there are a lot of MSSP service providers. I think we, Crowe, I think I don't want to make this as a sales pitch, but yes, I think we as a Crowe also are providing SOC 24/7 services. So where you can outsource your right monitoring to Crowe or to any company, okay, and they can actually do your SOC monitoring for you, right, 24/7. So you don't have to really take that burden that okay, I think how to monitor, how to hire a team, how to have 5 people, 6 people team sitting and then doing monitoring, right? It's because I know it is very difficult to manage a team of 6, 7 people, making them sit in office 24/7 and asking them to do monitoring. There are a lot of challenges. So most of the companies that I have seen what they do, even big fours are doing it, big companies are doing it, right? I think small companies can definitely do that. Okay, I think most of the big companies, if you see, they actually outsource their monitoring services because they don't want team to just sit and then do the monitoring, because it is a non-productive work, right? It is not really creating any product. It is really very critical, but actually it is considered as a non-productive because just people sitting and then doing the monitoring what's happening and what. So you can actually have outsource your monitoring thing, okay, and get 24/7 monitoring, 8x5 monitoring. You can have on-call supports. You can have a lot of options are available in market. You can just think about it. You can sit, do an assessment. Right, you need any help from our side as a consultant, please, we are ready to help you. And then we have detection and protective controls. So the previous one actually is more of people or process. This one actually is of technical control I'm talking about. So you need to have vulnerability scanning. Okay, like it can be Qualys, it can be Nessus, it can be a lot of solutions available. So what kind of vulnerability management solutions are available? If you don't want to go with any standalone vulnerability solutions like Qualys and Nessus because these are costly solutions, okay, based on your budget, if you have Microsoft E3 license, maybe you can plan actually to go for E4 or E5 license, because E5 license actually covers the vulnerability part also. So go for an E5 part. So I think you can actually have to sit and think, right, how exactly you want to improve. And then penetration testing, okay, you can actually do quarterly, half yearly or yearly penetration testing. And then SIEM and SOC, definitely you can have, and protective control like firewall, antivirus, patch management, secure configurations, right, all these things can be covered. And I'll quickly move to, I just want to check. Okay. I don't have much time. 15 minutes. Okay. Business continuity and recovery. Okay. How your business BCP plans are available. Business impact analysis was conducted or not. Right. Do you have any DRP plan? How regular testings and drills are getting conducted or not? And then the roles and responsibilities. This you should definitely have it. Given the scenario currently we are in here in UAE region, that actually becomes utmost important and priority for you to have a BCP plan available for your organization. Okay, then supply chain security, I believe I have covered, right? Vendor due diligence, contractual security clauses. Contractual security clause, second block is really very important. I think you should really focus on, because that contractual security clauses will actually save us in case of any unforeseen or unfortunate incidents. So if something happens, because we don't look into this contractual clauses, then we simply sign agreements and contracts with them. So tomorrow something happens, actually vendor take things for granted, and vendor says that, no, I think as per the contract, you people have signed it. So our SLA is like 24 hours, 48 hours. So we cannot come to your rescue in 1 hour or 2 hours. So I'm saying that contractual security clauses will really save us. Right. So you should really go back and check your security clauses. Then ongoing monitoring of these vendors, right? How exactly, because I think vendors also have to go through some security standards, like whether there are any regulatory standard that they are following, where there are any audits that they are actually conducting on their own entity, because if they are attacked, I think the door actually is open for our organization also, right? So they actually should be first safe. When they are safe, then we are also safe. So you have to have that, auditings conducted on the vendors also. At least yearly, not quarterly, monthly will become too much, but at least yearly you should have that. And then concentration, right? Assessment and mitigation of concentration risk from over reliance on single vendors. So, right, you see, right, if you can have at least 2-3 different vendors, so that if one vendor has any problem, you can actually switch to a second vendor. So this kind of thing you can have. And then almost I'm done. I think I'll just give maybe 5-10 minutes time just to have some open discussion. Then again, common gaps and how to address them. In governance, if you see the common gap is lack of defined roles. As I said, right, the roles are not properly defined. Who is accountable for what, right? Who is responsible for what? You don't have. So I think that lack of defined roles, policies, cybersecurity. So the recommendation, right, is establish formal governance structure, approve and communicate policies. Right. And then second area is risk assessment, incomplete risk assessment or asset inventories. As I said, asset inventories are not available. So I think perform periodic assessments, align with CRMF, maintain your IT inventory sheets and all. Again, in access control, there are some gaps. Okay. Then incident response, you have no formal IRP documents, incident response plan documents you don't have. Third party risk, there are no missing security SLAs. As I said, SLAs are really very important when you're actually dealing with the third party vendors. Because, for example, something happens in your organization and you need the vendor to come and support you in like maybe next 30 minutes, next 1 hour. And then you reach out to that vendor. The vendor says that, as per the contract, my SLA is 24 hours. So I will come to your office within 24 hours. What will you do? Right, so you cannot actually have impact on your business and just thinking about this SLAs. Okay, I'll wait for 24 hours. Right, you cannot do that. So for that reason, you need to go and check your missing security SLAs. Like, okay, which are critical vendors for you and whether their SLAs are properly aligned with your requirements or not. Then awareness, staff unaware of cybersecurity responsibilities. Because if you see the major attacks that has happened in the recent past, I would take some example like Jaguar and Land Rover, Marks and Spencers. Right, these are some very recent major attacks. Right, Jaguar and Land Rover was not able to resume its business for more than 45 to 50 days because of the cyber attack actually it experienced. And if you actually go, right, I'll not get into the technical details of it, but if you actually go and just do some research about Jaguar and Land Rover, the attack was not because of some weak security controls or not because of some, right, actually it was all because of some user, right, user giving the password or the details to the attacker over the help desk call. Okay, so the attacker created a situation or a scenario such that the help desk guy, right, maybe a fresher or maybe a junior, he just gave the password to the attacker. And using that, he actually entered the environment and he disabled all the security controls and he did whatever he wants to do. So I'm saying that awareness is really very important, like whom to provide your passwords, whom you're not supposed to provide password. That security, it actually comes from security awareness. So you need to conduct these kind of security mandatory trainings, right, for your employees. So these are some key gaps. Okay, and then right, implementation roadmap. So phase 1, you should actually initiate initiation and gap assessment. First, you should start with gap assessment. Okay, you can actually do, right, you can actually hire an external consultant for that. You can actually have a team who can actually do it for you. Okay. Then again, phase 2 is like policy and governance. You should check. First, you have done gap assessment. Then you are going checking the policies and governance structure, whether you have all the documents or not. Then the technical controls. Because policy is important. Once you have the policy, you can have a number of technical controls. But you don't have a policy actually defined, right? The technical controls will not come into picture. First, have a policy. Then, according to that policy, you need. For example, when I say policy, you need to have an MFA, right? So now, for enabling MFA, what technical controls are required? That becomes later, right? That becomes phase 3. But first, you need to have a policy. If you don't have an MFA policy, technical control will not even come into picture. So that is the reason you need to have that phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 is a technical control thing, like implementing MFA, SIEM and all. And then phase 4 is like training and awareness. Because, for example, if I actually put the training and awareness somewhere here in phase 1 or phase 2, so what kind of training I'm going to give to employees when I, as an organization, don't have the policies, don't have the technical control. So first I should have all this, then I should actually have a right training and awareness to tell people that, okay, these are your technical controls. So whenever you see something abnormal or suspicious, you can report to so and so people. So you need to give that awareness training to the people as part of phase 4. And then phase 5, incident management and BCP, you should have it. And then phase 6, audit and review. So you can actually hire an external consultant to come and do an audit for you so that you can get an assessment report. Okay. So you are also comfortable. Okay. When you get an audit from an external provider, because they actually come and do it as a neutral guy, right? So they don't have any partiality, because internally, if you do, there are, right, I'm not saying, right, but again, right, when you do internally, you can be a little bit partial, right? You can be, right, taking things little, okay, for lenience, okay, that's fine. But when you actually hire an external auditor, so they actually do it unbiased completely. I think better you hire somebody and then get this audit done. So yeah, I think we only have like around maybe how much 5-6 minutes left for this thing. So before signing off, or before closing this, or taking up any questions in the 5 minutes that we have. Okay, I think our comprehensive portfolio of cybersecurity offerings that I just want to take maybe I think 1-2 minutes. So these are our different offerings that we are providing from Crowe. Okay, in case any of you are interested or are looking for any of these services, we'll be more than happy to sit and discuss with you how exactly we can support as a cybersecurity service provider in helping you in making your cybersecurity more resilient. Okay. Yeah, I think I'll not get into I'll not talk about each of these services. Okay, because I don't want to make this webinar look of sales. It purely was for awareness, and I actually want to keep it for awareness. But as this PPT will be shared to you, okay. Now how I think Manish and I think they will take care of it. So they are going to share this to you. Everybody is going to receive this PPT. So you can actually go through all these services that we are offering. And in case you need any support, any help on any of this service, you can reach out to Manish. Okay, I think on the LinkedIn post, you have his number. I think you can always reach out to him. Okay, so yeah, maybe I think now if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. I think we only have 5 minutes.
Shanavas, there is some questions already in the registration form. You can just you can start with that. We can take more time, no issues in answering.
Do you have a registration form? Sorry, Manish.
Yes, see, I will tell you. It is, what are the key practical challenges faced by ADGM regulated entities in implementing the CSRM framework, and how can organizations effectively align their existing systems and process to meet these requirements?
Okay. Well, stop staring. So see, I think key practical challenges, what I would suggest is we actually don't know how to start. So that actually is one of the key practical challenge that I've seen. Because when I actually ask organizations that, okay, are you compliant to ADGM, this FSRA CRM framework? So they get confused. They get lost. Like, okay, I think, okay, I don't have a CRM framework. Okay, I don't have. But the point is you actually have all the things available. Okay, you have all the policies. Like maybe, maybe you might have out of all the categories that I've listed down, so you might have like maybe 10, 15, 16, or maybe 10 or 12 categories you've already implemented. Maybe you think 3-4 categories you don't have it, but those 3-4 categories actually makes you little low in confidence, and then you actually feel that so I think the practical challenges that I would say is they don't know what exactly are they compliant, or what kind of policies they have. So what I would suggest is go back to the core domains that I've just listed down, like 8 different domains: access management, asset management, change management. I think these controls or domains you first list down as your priority or low hanging fruits. See whether you have all these documents or not. So it will actually help you in overcoming those practical challenges that everybody has.
Yeah, you can just scroll down the chat and see the other 2 questions. The second question is this applicable to all ADGM companies?
Yes, I think all the financial entities, financial deal entities, it can be banks, insurance, it can be brokers, it can be, so who are actually dealing with the financial I think for them it is applicable. Registered entities of ADGM dealing with the financial things, for them the ADGM this FSRA CSRM regulation is mandatory. Then again, what are the basic cybersecurity requirements that an ADGM regulated escrow service provider must follow to stay compliant with? I think I have already covered the basic requirements. There are 8 domains. There are total 12, 13 different categories. Okay, I think you can actually look into those categories. If you're actually compliant to that, I think you will be compliant to FSRA, CSRM compliant.
Any further questions from the participants?
Hi, this is Shiraz here from Technomatters. We provide support for one of the entities who's attending the meeting. So I'm attending the meeting on their behalf. My question is there a fine line for SMB companies, where there are about 10, 15, 20 employees? Now, a lot of the terms that you mentioned in the meeting, it's really eye-opener, of course, and some of them are, but there are a lot of stuff which is for enterprise. So let us say, when we submit the compliance report or to the auditor or whatever, do they accept an answer as not applicable for, let's say, a company who does not have any public facing services at all? do you accept VAPT as not applicable for, because there's no public facing services as such? Is there a fine line that you would suggest in a short brief, what is the good thing as a minimal to expect for the SMBs? We have MFA in place, we have the basic security in place. So is that good enough for SMBs?
I think that is a fair point, Shira, right? I think that is a good point. Okay, because yes, right, not everything will be applicable for everyone. Okay, like as you said, I think the penetration testing might be not applicable, which are right. For example, if you are as an organization are not exposing anything to internet or you don't have anything internet, I think what penetration testing you will do, right? Because penetration testing is more for an external attack surface, right? From how exactly the external attack happened. So yes, I think what an external auditor can do is when actually he is conducting an audit on an entity, okay, he'll actually see what is applicable and what is not applicable, and as part of that audit report that we are going to share, all right, we submit as a final report to you, we actually clearly mention what is applicable and what is not applicable, and only for the applicable controls only we actually give you the right, we collect the evidences from the customers, and that actually becomes a final report that you can submit to the ADGM regulator. So yes, I think there are applicable and not applicable. Not everything will be applicable for companies. So it completely depends, right? The size of the organization, what exactly
even solutions like SIEM, for example. So if you don't have anything to be monitored as such and everything is on the cloud, one more thing that comes up. So let's say most of your services are on Microsoft or Google or XYZ. So in this case, do we just depend on the documentation of this third party of whatever security controls they have in place? Is that good enough for you? Because you don't have anything at your on-premises. So purely, let's say, digitization that happened, or let's say digital transformation, sorry. So they don't have any local facing services as such or public facing services in their premises. So can we consider that third parties security enough?
You can, but again, the accountability will be on your organization. You cannot make Azure accountable for any
organization like this. They follow, rather than CRMF, they follow a trust framework with third party companies like us. So yeah. Okay.
Correct. No, I think, right, I think, for example, most of your service actually is on Azure, right? You have nothing on-prem, nothing available there. So yes, obviously your security controls, but again, the point is, okay, it is on Azure. Yes, I understand. But the point is, how secure you are actually on Azure, like whether all the features of security have been enabled there or not. So that accountability actually will be with the organization or with the company. It will not be with Azure. So you need to actually do that assessment. Okay, I think my right, most of my workloads, most of my things actually on Azure. Okay, but the point is how secure. Right, I think what are the security controls enabled, like whether the encryption is enabled, because Microsoft by default it will not give you all the security controls, right? So you need to subscribe to that specific model actually to get that required security controls also. So you need to actually sit and do an assessment whether the subscription that I have with Azure actually covers all these things or not, like maybe whether the TLS encryption is enabled or not, whether the any monitoring capabilities are coming with this particular thing or not. You need to sit and do that assessment.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Shanawaz.
Yeah, Shanawaz, there is one question in the chat. Does CSRM also applicable on digital assets company who is merely mining Bitcoin rather than trading?
This maybe I have to once check whether it is applicable for mining Bitcoin and they're not into trading. So I have to once check. Maybe I can actually get back to this user. I think it is Mohammed Azim. So I can actually get back to him, Manish. Then check and then get back whether it is applicable to them or not. But this I have to check from the legal standpoint also. So I cannot just straight tell. So I will check and then maybe I'll get back to him.
Okay. Any further questions? So we will wind up. I think that's over.
Okay then.
There is no more questions.
Okay. Thanks everyone. Thanks for joining and thanks for having patience of like 1 hour 15 minutes, right? 1 hour 30 minutes, right? To be with me. So appreciate all you joining. So thanks again. Thanks everyone. Have a nice day.